Hey guys, I hope you guys are having a great day. Alright, so someone asked me to make a Flying Cup team on the best teams. So, Flying Cup is tomorrow from November 5th, 6 p.m. local time. So, your local time up until midnight. So, with this event, you have 100 battles. So, you're going to have 100 battles. It's not clear if you're going to be able to do if the 100 battles is throughout the day, or if you could do 25 first and then 75 Flying Cup battles. However, this cup is going to also have all the other leagues available, but you only have 6 hours to do it. So there's only 2 routes you could basically do this. One do Great League, or Great League, Master Premier, or do the Flying Cup. I recommend you do the Flying Cup to get you used to the next cup. If you're close to rank 10, I would do probably Great League, but anyways, the Flying Cup is going to be really interesting. This video is going to focus on the top 5 teams for the Flying Cup. Now, I'm going to use this from the PV Poke data that's released out from a chart. So we're going to use that data and we're going to analyze each and every team just to see what these top 5 teams are for the Flying Cup. Alright, so here's the PV Poke analysis for the Flying Cup on the battle analysis from the PV Poke's training battles. Now, this is pretty accurate. As with others, these are battles that have been doing hundreds of battles for Flying Cup teams on the simulator. Now, the simulator is really freaking good. So if these teams are winning, they're viable for Go Battle League. Trust me, I've made rank 10 using these teams. Well, not these teams, but I've used them when I've broken teams into PV Poke, and I've used the teams I've broken into these training sims to make rank 10. So these teams are really good. Now, if you look at every single team except for one, a lot of them feature Aerodactyl. Now, for the purposes of this video, and for time purposes as well, we're only going to analyze the first 5 teams. As you see, the last 5 teams, or the last, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, are all of pretty much the same rating. But we want to know about the most powerful teams. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to analyze the top 5 teams right here. And that it's going to be really interesting. As you see, every team has Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl is just so powerful in this meta. If you don't have one, there is this team right here that features Emolga and Zapdos with Mantine in the front. The difficulty is, a lot of you probably don't have an Emolga built. In fact, a lot of you probably don't even have an Aerodactyl built. That's good for the Flying Cup. Anyways, here we go. We're going to dive into the top 5 teams, and we're just going to put it in the simulator. We're going to go to the simulator. We're going to analyze each and every one. Particularly the top 2 right here, because both of them have the same rating and they feature very powerful mons. Looks like to beat a really good team, or really good teams for the Flying. So the first team we're going to analyze is the 5th one. We have Mantine, Emolga, and Zapdos. So Mantine, Emolga, Zapdos, I plugged it into the team builder, and as you see, it's a very, very good team. Now, a lot of teams in the Flying Cup aren't going to have a lot of bulk. But the really interesting thing about this team is that it doesn't feature Aerodactyl. Now, with Emolga and Zapdos, these two are very powerful chargers. So that means this is going to get you a lot of damage quickly. So as you see here, very strong against a lot of the Flying Cup. As you see, Emolga and Zapdos, Mantine loses hard against both of them. So this team gives you a lot of flexibility because, as you see here, the only thing that really checks this team is Zapdos. It has coverage against a majority of the rest of the meta, and along with that, it has an insane amount of charge move pressure. So it's going to pressure your shields, and it's going to actually obliterate the meta. As you see here, the potential threats are Zapdos, but however, I think what this does is that this team takes out the Aerodactyl, and then, like I said, it just wipes out the rest of the competition. As you see here, it's very, very powerful against the meta. It has a team that beats it beats Skarmory. All 3 Pokemon beat Skarmory. And even though Emolga and Zapdos do lose against Aerodactyl, you're able to beat Aerodactyl as long as it doesn't have shields. So Mantine's job is to pressure the first 2 shields. I think what this team does, you pressure with Mantine, break the shields, or you use Mantine and Emolga to pressure, and then you sweep with Zapdos. Either one. Either way, really solid team. Threat score of 336. Incredibly powerful. Like I said, this team features... Mantine beats Aerodactyl, so Mantine will beat Aerodactyl. It beats a lot of things in the lead. It's one of the best leads in the Flying Cup. And then you have 2 really fast chargers in the back. This team, break the shields and sweep with Zapdos or Emolga. Looks to be a really good team. The problem I see with this team is that you have to... Emolga and Zapdos aren't easy to get. That's the big problem. It's hard to find a regular Zapdos. You don't want to use Shadow Zapdos because you need as much bulk as you can for this cup. So I can see why it's number 5. It doesn't feature Aerodactyl, but at the same time, as long as you manage to catch Aerodactyl with a Discharge or a Thunderbolt, you're able to KO it. So it's a very powerful team. Like I said, great team. Problems: you're gonna have a hard time getting a good Emolga or getting a Zapdos for the Flying Cup. Alright, so the 5th team we have, or the 4th team actually, that we're going to feature here has an Emolga lead, an Aerodactyl in the middle, and a Skarmory in the back. This team's really interesting because you don't really have a safe switch. I'm guessing you switch in Aerodactyl for your safe switch, or you use Skarmory as a safe switch, but it's a very interesting team. So here we go. We have this team over here. We're gonna throw the rating, and as you see, very, very similar. It has... The thing about this team is it's very... Of course, bulk is never an issue, but it's really interesting to have an Emolga lead, just because an Emolga lead is really interesting, and it's hard to get. So if we look down here, it does very well against the meta. The back row of Aerodactyl and Skarmory does cover a majority of the meta in itself, and Emolga beats a lot of leads. The interesting thing is Aerodactyl wins against Emolga, so if you get an Aerodactyl lead, it's just really interesting. So I'm assuming what happens here is that you pressure shields with Emolga, and then you use Aerodactyl and Skarmory to sweep. Now, if we look at the potential threats here, Zapdos does really well against this entire team. Except for Aerodactyl, I'm guessing you're going to throw Aerodactyl, and then when you sack Aerodactyl, you're going to farm down, try to brush shields, and then you sweep with Emolga or Skarmory. So I'm guessing Aerodactyl is your safe switch. Is Aerodactyl a great safe switch? I don't know, to be honest with you. As you see, there's a lot of... It does cover... Emolga covers a lot of leads, and Aerodactyl is a safe... I'm assuming you Aerodactyl safe switch in, and then you sweep with Skarmory. Because even though there are a lot of things that do beat Skarmory, Skarmory can do a lot of damage against a majority of the meta, as you see here. It does a lot of damage. Threat score of 373. So lower than number 5, but can still be very effective. The problems I see with this team is that Aerodactyl, like I said, Emolga is very... Like, an Emolga lead, the 2 Pokemon in the back don't have a lot of pressure. So I'm guessing what this team does is it pressure shields with Emolga as the lead, and then you save shields for Aerodactyl and Skarmory to sweep. Because if you save shields for anything in the back of the Flying Cup, it's really good. And it does really well. So that's my guess of why this team works. And why it belongs in number 4. Simple strategy. Break shields with Emolga, and then sweep with the back. Or you safe switch in Aerodactyl, and then you try to break shields and switch in Emolga. But if you lose switch in the Flying Cup, it's really difficult to come back from. Alright, so it looks like the 3rd team we have is Altaria, Aerodactyl, and Emolga. Now, as we see here, we plug it in. I'm guessing Emolga is your sweeper, and Aerodactyl, as mentioned by PvPoke, is strong in the back. So if we run the sim, this team's very interesting because Altaria in the lead. Altaria is very powerful against elemental leads. It's very, very powerful. And it's surprisingly bulky for this lead because yes, Aerodactyl does chuck rocks at it, but it takes quite a bit of rock throws to take out Altaria. So as you see here, the team has a pretty good score. In fact, I think with Altaria, that's the only way you're going to get a C bulk score. Because you won't have to shield very often with Altaria, or Altaria can sweep. And Dragon Breath does a lot of damage. Now, as we see here, the interesting thing is that Altaria doesn't win a lot of leads. Altaria will pressure Mantine, Aerodactyl, Skarmory, so you do a lot of pressure against losing leads. However, you're gonna die to Articuno very heavily, so it's just really interesting how this team works. Other than that, it has features a very strong back row. Aerodactyl, Emolga, etc. So if you switch an Aerodactyl to take it out, Altaria and Emolga might be able to sweep the competition. As you see here, the potential threats, all of these Pokemon lose to Aerodactyl. Now, I think it's really strong because Emolga and Aerodactyl in the back are very good, and because Altaria can sponge a lot of damage, that seems to be why it's the number 3 team. Altaria is very, very tanky, and if you do win the lead against things like, as you see here, Pelipper, Gliscor, Emolga, it does beat Emolga and Zapdos. The feature for this team is that Altaria does beat these two monsters, like the 2 electric monsters, which are Emolga and Zapdos. Beats both of those. The interesting thing is, it loses it. There's a very strong possibility you'll see a Skarmory, Aerodactyl, Mantine, yeah, it's very strong. You'll see the top 3 in the lead, and the only thing that checks Skarmory and Mantine is Emolga. So, this team is very, very interesting. Now, I think Altaria has a lot of play. I would say this is probably one of the more difficult teams to play. Yes, it has a threat score of 364, so, like, it's not the best thing since sliced bread, but, like, it's a very interesting team. I'm guessing you put Altaria in the lead to put pressure, and then you farm with Aerodactyl and use Emolga to close. That's probably the best function for this team. Difficulties of this team, Emolga is very hard to use. The good thing about this team is you probably already have an Altaria built for Great League. Because of that, this team doesn't actually feature a lot of things that are going to be hard for you to get. Except for Emolga, of course. Emolga, you could probably replace Emolga with Zapdos if I had to replace anything in this team. This team's looking really good, though. Use Altaria to break shields and just bait everything, and then sweep with the back row, and then switch in Emolga or Aerodactyl as your safe switch accordingly. Alright, so now here's what I'm going to focus on the most, is the top 2 teams. As you see, the top 2 teams have a very powerful rating, and they tie each other as far as average battle rating goes. So the second team features Zapdos, Aerodactyl, and Altaria. Remember we mentioned that Altaria is a monster? Let's take a look out. So here I popped in Zapdos, Aerodactyl, and Altaria in this team builder, and as you see here, it doesn't feature a lot of bulk, mostly because Emolga versus Zapdos. Emolga's essentially a tankier Zapdos. Does that make sense? But Zapdos deals a ton of damage. So as you see here in the meta scorecard, Emolga actually, the thing that makes this team really good is Emolga actually loses to Zapdos. So that's what makes it really weird. Emolga loses to everything on this team. It loses to Zapdos, Aerodactyl, Altaria. Now, Zapdos also loses to this team. So basically, if you have a Zapdos or Emolga on your team, all 3 of these Pokemon are strong against Emolga and Zapdos. With Zapdos in the lead, you're able to break shields and all these Pokemon, these Pokemon are really strong. Now, Aerodactyl does beat all 3 of these, but shields down and with energy, I think you can wipe out those Aerodactyls in the back as long as you take out all of their shields. As you see, Zapdos is able to take on a ton of the meta. You're able to take out a ton of leads. And you even beat Articuno. So if they try to lead with Articuno or anything like that, or be fancy, you beat all of them. And that's what's just really interesting for the meta. As far as threats go, like I mentioned, Aerodactyl is not your best friend. If you get an Aerodactyl in the lead, it's going to suck a lot. What you'll probably do is summon your own Aerodactyl, and then try to farm down with the other 2. However, I think the reason why this team is just so powerful is because you're, like I said, if an Emolga or Zapdos are in their team, you're pretty dang good. And not only that, even if they don't have either one, it still challenges a lot of relevant meta. For example, you're not gonna see a lot of Togekisses in this league. You're definitely not. You do wipe out Mantine, you do wipe out Skarmory, you do take out a lot of two popular leads I can see happening around here. And it's like I said, you beat Emolga and Zapdos. So, it's very powerful against the sweepers of this meta, which are going to be Emolga and Zapdos. But like I said, very powerful team. I would say the only difficulty of this team is, like I said, obtaining Zapdos. The strategy with this team, use Zapdos, break shields, or safe switch in Aerodactyl. I see Aerodactyl as like the strong safe switch or something like that. That's why it's in the middle. You swap in Aerodactyl, you take out the Zapdos, etc., and then poof, you win. And then Altaria's in the back because Altaria with Shield is a monster. Or you can use Altaria to line up against those Emolgas, etc., and then take the W. So very strong team. Like I said, the only difficult thing I see with this top team is that Zapdos is hard to get. But Zapdos lead, as you see here, very, very powerful because you beat a lot of leads in the beginning, and this team essentially wants you to have a Zapdos or Emolga because it practically wipes out the team. Yeah, it wipes out the team. It's very good. Alright, so if I had to pick my favorite team from this list, probably have to be the second one. Zapdos, Aerodactyl, and Altaria. These two mons are very available, and I like the idea of pressuring Zapdos to pressure shields, and then using Aerodactyl as kind of a safe switch. So this is the team I like. This is the team I like the most. If you want the budget team is definitely in the lower echelons here, and I think the budget team would probably be Mantine, Aerodactyl, and Altaria. This team has no legendaries in it, and you probably already have a Mantine and Altaria built. As you see, this team is very powerful. Mantine beats a lot of leads. You have the typical Aerodactyl. You need an Aerodactyl. If you don't have an Aerodactyl in this lead, unless you have an Emolga like this one right here, it's a very difficult mon to play around. Even with this team, it's hard to play around. So this is the budget team: Mantine, Aerodactyl, and Altaria. So the good thing about the Flying Cup is that it's gonna go really fast. So that's why 6 hours is way more than enough time to do 75 battles. As you see here, I'm gonna do a quick battle for the top team for the training battle, and we're just gonna go on real quick. We get a Skarmory versus Mantine. Technically, Mantine beats Skarmory, so it's gonna be really difficult. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to break both shields. I'm going to gather up to a burb, and then we're going to take out Mantine's shields. As you see here, Mantine is a very, very effective lead. Bubble is going to chunk down the amount of damage you can do, and Ice Beam does heavy damage, as you see here. All we're going to do is get to a burb, and then we're going to fire the Sky Attack. We want to grab both shields. There's a reason why you play a lot of those Zapdos teams, or the Zapdos is in front, because it does grab a lot of shields. And if we had Zapdos versus this Mantine, it wouldn't be a good time for this Mantine, or even an Emolga. Now, as you see, we take that shield. Now, I'm not going to shield. This is very risky. It is a Bubble Beam. So, as you see, Mantine is a very tricky mon to go against. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm actually going to go for the burb. We're going to go for the burb, because we want this Mantine to farm us down. In the back, we have an Aerodactyl, and we have an Articuno. Now, because Articuno is an Ice type, you do resist Mantine shots. As you see, we're going to go down, but we have 2 shields, so this is okay. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to summon Articuno, and as you see, we're going to take minimal damage from these bubbles. We still take heavy damage from that Ice Beam, so we're going to... Okay, we get to switch into an Aerodactyl. Remember when I mentioned that you want to keep Articuno away from Aerodactyl? This is why. This thing's a monster. We're going to Icy Wind to lower the damage. We're going to send in our own Aerodactyl just so we don't take any more damage. Take that out. We take out the Aerodactyl with our Aerodactyl, and then we get in Altaria. This is great because we have shields and you don't. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to fire this Rock Slide, and we're just going to double shield and farm down with Aerodactyl. You could do this. This is basically the strat, is to save shields and then sweep in the back, if that's what you want to do. That's the general basis of it. Or you tap down with Aerodactyl, either one. Whoever breaks shields first and saves their shields wins. And that's why, as you see, these battles are going to go very quickly. But that's why these top 2 teams are very strong, because as you see here, they're the top team, the ones in the lead, they break a lot of shields. That's why you don't see a lot of Aerodactyl leads, because Aerodactyl doesn't break shields. As you see here, Mantine has to expend all of its energy. We did heavy damage. Articuno can come in and sweep, because Mantine can't one-shot our Articuno. Articuno's semi-bulky, so that's why it's going to be able to take this match. Or we could just farm down with Ice Shard. So, this is Mantine's going to have another Bubble Beam off. It's not going to get to an Ice Beam. Oh, it does get to an Ice Beam? Does it KO? Oh, it doesn't! Ooh! And we win with the Ice Shard. Wow, that was a close match. As you see here, Articuno can in fact live in Ice Beam because it does resist ice. Well, ice does neutral damage, but that's a very interesting team. As you see there, I definitely recommend you use this tool to practice Flying Cup if you aren't comfortable. I played Articuno a lot in Ultra League, so I'm pretty used to it. But like, definitely use this tool to practice. That team, as you see, that top team is very good, but we struggled a lot with Aerodactyl versus Articuno is risky. It's bad. But like I said, the general strategy of the Flying Cup is this: you either tap down or you save shields and you break down. Whoever loses their shield first in this meta is going to have to be really fancy, because the Flying Cup is going to go very quickly. Alright, so this is the Flying Cup. I hope you guys have a great day. I hope this video helped you out with the Flying Cup. Remember, Flying Cup is tomorrow. If you don't want to do Flying Cup, remember, the other leagues will be available, so you can do Great League along with the Flying... you can do Great League instead of Flying Cup. If you're spent on time, I definitely would do the Flying Cup, and like I said, this cup really depends on who has what Pokemon you have, and who has to use their shield first. The general strategy of this cup is to save your shields for the back and sweep whatever you have in the back. That's basically it. Whoever pops their shield first, you're gonna have to play really well so that you can get back from the match, because a lot of things in the back can sweep you. Anyways, I hope this video helped you guys out. You guys have a wonderful day, and good luck on the Flying Cup and your 100 battles tomorrow.